As they continued with the wilderness laps, some of the leaders from the tribe that had chosen to serve God rose against Moses and Aaron. They also mobilized some men of renown to form a confederacy of 250 people. Together, they confronted Moses and Aaron out of the blue, saying, "You take too much upon yourselves, for all the congregation is holy, every one of them, and the Lord among them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" Numbers 16 verse 3. Foremost, it has to be mentioned that they had no idea how Moses and Aaron came into their posts. If they knew, they would have not allowed themselves to stray in such a manner. For Moses and Aaron were handpicked by God. Likewise, we have to understand that church leadership, or any gathering of God's people, should be appointed by God. They are not and should never be voted in by people. Neither should anyone contend with them. Moses was born in Egypt, in a dangerous and risky era. For Pharaoh, the then king of Egypt, had declared a great massacre of all the newly born Hebrew boys. Thus Moses, being Hebrew, was hidden indoors for 3 solid months by his mother. However, there came a time she could no longer do so. She therefore made a little ark, and coated it with tar and pitch, and placed Moses inside it. Then she went and placed the ark by the river bank. Moses' sister strategically positioned herself to observe what would happen to him. Then, along came one of the king's daughters to take a bath in the river, as was the norm. Lo and behold, the ark. She asked her maid to fetch it, only to discover that there was a baby. She automatically identified him as one of the babes on death parole, but decided spare him. Not only that, but she went a further mile. She would adopt him. When Moses' sister saw her interest, she jumped on the scene, and offered some suggestion to look for a mother from Moses' own people to nurse him. When Pharaoh's daughter welcomed the suggestion, Moses' sister fetched Moses' real mother, to whom Pharaoh's daughter said, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you wages." Exodus 2 verse 9. That is how the mother got reunited with her son, along with a bonus of a paycheck. She nursed her son until she weaned him. Then she handed him back to Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh's daughter named him Moses, which directly means drawn out of the water. Moses could not bond with the palace life as he grew older. Thus, he used to go down to his own people, where he witnessed their anguish in slavery. They were in slavery because the same king had subjected them to slavery, because of his own insecurities. One day Moses witnessed a fight between an Egyptian boy and one of his own, and interjected. He interjected by killing the Egyptian, a crime which made him to flee the palace. For Pharaoh sought to kill him when he heard about the incident. Moses escaped to the land of Midian. There, he was welcomed by one of the local priests, and he eventually took on the shepherding role. Later on, he married one of the priest's daughters. In the course of time, he led the flocks to the furthest parts of the wilderness. He reached as far as the mountain called Horeb, which was known as the Mountain of God. There, he encountered a life-changing experience. An angel of the Lord appeared in the midst of a bush, in a flame of fire. Moses got mesmerized, because the fire was not consuming the bush. Therefore he drew close in order to view of the wonder closely. There, he heard his name being called from the midst of the very bush. When he responded, God introduced himself and stated his mission. Moses covered his face because he was afraid. God went ahead with disclosing his mission. He said, "I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to land flowing with milk and honey. Come now therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people." Exodus 3 verse 7 verse 10. Moses' response was as clear as the daylight. He did not want to go on the mission, therefore he gave an excuse. but God reassured him. Still, Moses had an excuse, and God reassured again, but Moses made yet another excuse, until there was a series of excuses and reassurances, for God never gave up. God went to the extent of giving Moses a preview of the mission. He alerted him of the responses he would encounter from Pharaoh. He also assured him of victory, and the treasures they would acquire from the Egyptians, as a result of his favor. Regardless, Moses remained defiant, causing God to notch up the conviction. God performed a sign and a wonder before Moses, but still the convinced Moses said, "O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." Exodus 4 verse 10. God responded saying, "Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore, go and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall say." Exodus 4 verse 11 to 12. The adamant Moses made a response that clearly proved he still did not want the post. He gathered the guts and told God to look for someone else. God was upset by the response, but did not give up on Moses. Instead, he said, "Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well. And look, he is also coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. Now you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth. And I will be with your mouth, and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do. So he shall be your spokesman to the people. And he himself shall be as a mouth for you, and you shall be to him as God. And you shall take this rod in your hand, with which you shall do the signs." Exodus 4 verse 14 to 17. Eventually Moses agreed. Thus Moses and Aaron were specifically handpicked by God. They did not just wake up with the idea of a deliverance ministry. Neither did they crave and campaign for the post. Instead, they were fully selected, authenticated, strategized and equipped for the task. Therefore, confronting such an innocent pair was reprehensible. The confronters were not only despising God's choice, but also envying, as documented in the scriptures, as they envied Moses in the camp and Aaron the servant of the Lord. Psalm 106 verse 16. Moses fell on his face and addressed the rebellious leader and his team, saying, "Tomorrow morning, the Lord will show who is his and who is holy, and will cause him to come nearer to him. That one whom he chooses he will cause to come nearer to him." Numbers 16 verse 5. Moreover, he asked them to bring their censers, filled with fire and incense before the Lord. He also reminded them of their own promotion. For God by that time had established a mobile tabernacle or temple, whereby the now rebellious group served him. God had promoted them to serve because they had willingly stepped to the Lord's side at the incident of the gold calf. Korah and company were amongst the chosen who served in the tabernacle. Moses realized that Dathan and Abiram of Korah's company were absent when he addressed the rest. They had remained in their tents in protest, because they did not want to be addressed by Moses. Regardless, Moses sent some messengers to fetch them, but they responded, "We will not come up. Is it a small thing that you brought us up out of the land flowing with milk and honey, to kill us in the wilderness, that you should keep acting like a prince over us? Moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up." Numbers 16 verse 12 to 14. The response upset Moses, and he escalated the issue to the Lord, saying, "Do not respect their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, nor have I hurt one of them." Numbers 16:15. The following morning, Moses and Aaron reported to the meeting place as planned. Their opponents also reported with censers filled with burning incense. Korah gathered all the people against Moses and Aaron. The glory of the Lord also appeared. God was ready to take vengeance on Korah and everyone who sided with him. However, Moses and Aaron fell on their faces. They pleaded with God to not take revenge on everyone else. Therefore, only Korah and the ringleaders were isolated from the rest of the people. Then Moses declared, "By this you shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of my own will. If these men die naturally like all men, or if they are visited by the common fate of all men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord creates a new thing, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the pit, then you will understand that these men have rejected the Lord." Numbers 16 verse 28 to 30. It happened as soon as Moses finished making the declaration that the ground split open. Korah, Dathan and Abiram were swallowed up along with their goods and their households. Then a fire came out from God and consumed the 250 of their company, who at that time had started offering sacrifices of incense. Surprise! Surprise! All the people gathered against Moses and Aaron on the following morning claiming, "You have killed the people of the Lord." Numbers 16 verse 41. God suddenly interjected. The cloud covered the tabernacle of meeting with the glory of the Lord. God was wroth, therefore sent a plague among the people. In response, Moses asked Aaron to promptly make atonement for the people, and the plague stopped when he did so. However, it had claimed 14,700 people. They had brought destruction on themselves, all because they had envied and rebelled against God's chosen leadership. In Moses' words, they had rejected the Lord. Sadly, those of their households perished along the following morning. God instructed Moses to collect the 12 rods from the leaders. A rod from each of their father's house was to be handed in with a clear label of the leader's name. Aaron's rod was to be handed in too. God further instructed, "Place these staffs in the tabernacle in front of the ark containing the tablets of the covenant, where I meet with you. Buds will sprout on the staff belonging to the man I choose. Then I will finally put an end to the people's murmuring and complaining against you." Numbers 17 verse 4 to 5. Moses did as instructed and left the rods in the tabernacle of meeting. The following day, Aaron's rod had not only sprouted, but it had blossomed and yielded ripe almonds. Moses brought all the rods before God and the people. They witnessed what had happened, and the rest of the leaders were handed their rods back. God further instructed Moses to retain the fruity rod of Aaron. He precisely said, "Bring Aaron's rod back before the testimony, to be kept as a sign against the rebels, that you may put their complaints away from me, lest they die." Numbers 17 verse 10. That must have hit home, for them to blurb, "Surely we die, we perish, and we all perish. Whoever even comes near the tabernacle of the Lord must die. Shall we all utterly die?" Numbers 17 verse 12 to 13. Thus God's evidence left them in a panic mode, proving that no one can disapprove whom God has appointed. Hence, whoever contests is directly contesting against God and will face the consequences. Conversely, Scriptures clearly state that one desiring the post of a leader must be blameless, a husband of one wife, temperate, sober-minded, of good behavior, hospitable and able to teach. He must not be given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but gentle, not quarrelsome, nor covetous, but one who rules his own house well. He must be able to rule his own household, for this serves as evidence that he is capable of caring for God's people. He must not be a novice, for this may expose him to pride and a great fall. Finally, he must have a good reputation with the outsiders, so that he may not be discredited and fall into the devil's trap. As for Moses, God himself testified that he was the meekest in his time, and therefore the reason why God spoke to him face to face.